Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Hi, Emma. Hi, Graham's Robo. I think Sylvia, I just came off of her. She's still wrapping up hers. Hi, Y. So I think there'll be a delay for people who are going to continue watching. But I know she's still wrapping up, but I'm on here. I'm ready to go. But we'll wait a minute or two just in case people want to finish up with her and come over here. Can you hear me okay? Cool. Thank you, Y. Okay. I'm just going to wait a minute or two. Let Sylvia finish wrapping up. Thank you, Emma. And I want to say, if you hear baby crying, she's not singing this time. She's probably crying because she's sick. But she seems to be playing her guitar right now. So hopefully she won't be horribly noisy in the other room. The walls are thin. Hi, Art of Awakening. Hi, Gypsy Heart Soul. So these are like all these people I think I've seen in other talks today, which is awesome. Some I've only been able to pop in briefly. I know why. She has a cold, and the cold itself isn't bad, but because she gets so stuffy, she can't sleep well. So none of us slept well last night. So if I look tired, that's why. And then she doesn't nap well either because she can't breathe. So she gets like sleep apnea, and then we have to like clear out her nose. So, okay, let's see. Where's my clock? Okay. We'll give Sylvia one more minute to wrap up. Does anyone know if she's totally done now? Maybe. I'll just wait a minute. How's everyone doing? The time delay. Oh, thank you. What is the Magical YouTube Creators Group? I don't even know what that is. Hi, B. I'm just waiting a couple of minutes because Sylvia, who was on before me, was still wrapping up when I came on. Of course, I can't watch her now while I'm on, so I'm just waiting a couple extra minutes, let her wrap up, and then I'm going to get rolling on things. Magical YouTube's Creator, is that a Facebook group? Magical YouTube Creators Group. That's a cool name. Okay, so it's a few minutes past. Hopefully Sylvia's all wrapped up. Thank you, Art of Awakening. So my topic is releasing the old to allow in the new, and sort of the subtitles like practices and rituals you can do to help release the old to welcome in the new. And this whole process of release, like consciously releasing, began for me, I think it was 2006, New Year's Eve 2006 into 2007. Oh, thank you, Emma. I'll check it out. I'll try not to get distracted by the chat because lives are still new to me. And New Year's Eve 2006, so going into 2007, the previous years really, but I was still healing from a marriage to a very narcissistic person who was very good at gaslighting, and still processing that experience, still learning to understand myself from all that. And a friend of mine who loves labyrinths, and that's why I use that in the thumbnail for this, asked me, and this is when I lived in Seattle, she's like, oh, because she was totally into labyrinths. She asked me if I wanted to go do a labyrinth walk at the Episcopalian Cathedral. And I thought that sounded like an awesome idea. So I love labyrinths. It's a replica of the labyrinth at the Chartres Cathedral in France. I think many Episcopalian churches do that because I've since gone to other ones and they have that as well. And so we went there, and I really didn't know what to expect. I thought we were just going to walk the labyrinth, but there was a crowd of people there doing this ritual. And there's another ritual there, which I'll talk about, which is a great thing to do for release as well. And the ritual was, they had like people, ushers maybe, not letting the labyrinth get too crowded, but it was so crowded. It was like a very slow traffic jam, but that was helpful. So you walk the labyrinth very slow. And as you probably know, labyrinths are like meditation walks. And what I found myself doing as I was walking towards the center of the labyrinth, and it's, if you know the labyrinth, it's very elaborate. What I have here, and I'm going to talk about this in a bit, is sort of a smaller version of it, but it looks similar to that. What I did is I walked towards the center through the labyrinth, and you wind back and forth and you go around, and you have to go slow because there are people going both way on the path. I thought about all that I wanted to release from the past year, even years. And it started out as, I want to release, things outside of me. Like it was like layers out that moved in. So first it was like, I want to release that person from my life, or I want to release that thing from my life. I want to release this situation, right? It was external things. And as I worked towards the center of the labyrinth, it became more and more about me. Like, I want to release being pissed off about this, or I want to release hating someone for this, or whatever it might be. I can't remember exactly what it was because it's quite a few years ago, but I want to, it was like very personal. And it started to peel, like the layers of the onion, that symbolism. I started to peel away layers of me that I had not totally seen or acknowledged until I went through this practice. And me and like many other people walking in the labyrinth just had tears, rolling down their faces, because it was such a powerful exposure of ourselves to ourselves. It's like we peeled those layers to expose ourselves naked to ourselves. Like, what parts of me do I need to shift or change to bring in a better new year? Or what attitudes have I had that are hindering from my life changing in the new year? It was just a powerful practice of self-reflection. And so that's what I did as I worked through the labyrinth. Wait, let me just check here. Yeah, so Art of Awakening, 2 years. It's a long process. So I peeled things away. Hi, Heidi. I peeled things away as I walked to the center of the labyrinth. Not everything my entire life, but whatever came to me during that process. And what I've learned over the years, because I have done this every single year since, is that release isn't, done and gone, never again. It opens up a process that can take years, many years, several years, to completely release. But you need to like open up the doors, basically. Open up the doors to let what you want to release. And it does often start with, I want to release that bad job, or I want to release that friend, or I want to release, extra stuff in my closet. But it opens up doors to all those other layers too. And when I got to the center of the labyrinth, which, looks something like a flower, I stood there. I stood in one of, and I do this every year now, I stood in one of the petals, we'll call it. It's random which one I pick each year, but whichever one feels right. I stood there and I just put my hands in Anjali Mudra, or prayer position, and I let the tears flow. Emotionally, I let the tears help me to open those doors and windows to what I wanted to release. And some of the tears were realizing what doors and windows had opened. And it's those that have taken years to work through, but they were open, some a little, some a lot. Some stuff flew out and some stuff, creeped out slowly. But I just stood there, and I stood there in my presence to feel where I was at that turning point of 2006 into 2007. And I don't know how long I stood there. I think we were at this labyrinth for a few hours. So this was a long process. And then on the way out of the labyrinth, as you're winding through, it goes back and forth, and you go around and then back and forth. On the way out, slowly walking, letting the tears continue to flow, I thought, what do I want to bring into my life? And I started reflecting upon that. And first it started with, the list I probably had, Oh, I want, a good relationship, and I want this and I want that. Again, the external things. And then it went through the layers to, I want to be more confident in myself, or I want to stand my ground and hold my boundaries better. That was a big one that I worked on for a long time, probably still work on a little bit. I thought about all that I wanted to bring in, physical, tangible, and emotionally, psychologically. And I have to tell you, like, that whole labyrinth walk process, you're going super slow. It's freezing cold in Seattle. There's no heat, it seems like, in the cathedral. But something about the people and the energy that was building, because everyone who's walking that labyrinth was going through some sort of profound process. It wasn't just tourists coming in and do it. People were there for this purpose. Probably weren't doing exactly what I was doing, but I'm sure many people were doing something similar. And my friend and I were just boiling hot. We were just sweating hot. And that was part of the energetic release. So it was a very profound experience. So that is the first thing I have on my list here. I'm hoping we get through it all, because I'm realizing I put down a lot of a release practice to help clear space, to open those doors and windows for things both to release and continually release. Because again, it's not like it's done and gone in this one process, one practice, one ritual. And those doors are open, so there's space for the new to come in. And let me just check the chat. So this labyrinth I walked was in Seattle at St. Mark's Cathedral. That's when I lived there. When I moved to San Francisco, there's a large cathedral there called Grace Cathedral that also had a replica of the Shark Cathedral labyrinth. And now that I live in Santa Barbara, the Episcopalian church here, it's an Episcopalian thing, obviously, has one outside. And so I wanted to talk about, like, timing to do this. So New Year, right? January 1st, December 31st to January 1st. Like, this came up if any of you were at Christiana Gaudet's talk early this morning. It was 5 a.m. for me, so I was watching it. She talked about, the energy of January 1st, of the calendar new year. It's not anything significant astrologically. It's totally determined by business, society, whatever. But because there is a collective consciousness of new beginning, it is a great time to do the release and welcoming in the new process or ritual, whether you choose to do a labyrinth walk. And that can be done just, if you live in a city and there's no labyrinth, you can just walk around the block in one direction and then walk back in the other direction. You can do something like that. You can go walk in a park. You can do it as a sitting meditation too, where you visualize the process. But it has shifted for me. I've actually shifted it to the solstice every year, because that is more of a seasonal, an astrological and Western astrology new year. But it's the solstice. It's the darkest in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the darkest day of the year, or you say the shortest day of the year. And the days in the Northern Hemisphere start to get lighter and lighter. So I've shifted it to the solstice each year, either the day before, day of, when I can get to the labyrinth. And that feels actually more significant to me than actually doing it on New Year's Eve. And then because I was looking at the astrology, I just want to throw this in. If you're thinking of doing something like that, either as a walking meditation, a labyrinth meditation, or a seated meditation, the solstice this year is on December 21st. Or you can go by the new moon, which again is new energy. So the new moon around that time is December 25th at 9:13 p.m. And I'm on the Pacific coast of the US. So anyone on the East coast of the US, Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, it will be on the 26th. So if you wanted to plan it, or you can just do it, when it's convenient for you. So that's my labyrinth ritual. I'm just looking at my notes here. They get messy as I put layers and layers of notes on. Yeah, I wrote, just to point out, the continuousness or the continuum of releasing, and that in turn brings in the sort of continuous energy to welcome in new. And that can all be emotional things, physical things, psychological things, spiritual practices. And then I also wrote, it's important to ask in this process, or maybe after in journaling, why you want to release what you want to release. because that can peel away some more layers, and you may realize that what you going into it, what you think you want to release is not so much about that thing, but what it means to you emotionally, spiritually, or you could say psychologically. Okay, check the chat here. Why? Yearly practice. I think I'm missing some conversation here, but just want to check if there's any questions. Marjorie Crone, oh, you're a neighbor. You're in Orange County. Yeah. Oh, you went to school in Carpinteria. Yeah, it's funny. Just a little SoCal thing. Santa Barbara's so close to Orange County in LA, but it's not with traffic. You look at a map and think, oh yeah, I'll just drive there. No, it takes a long time. Fairy wrens are so special to me. Do you live in Australia? Not. Oh, you're talking to Cleo. Okay. Hello, Jenny from Inland. Oh, in Australia. So you guys in the Southern Hemisphere, because I was talking about how the December solstice or our winter solstice is the darkest day of the year. And from then on, the days get longer and lighter. So it feels like more of the like New Year point for me. You can do the same with your, December solstice as the summer has, your summer, summer solstice. I was getting myself tongue-tied. Even though the days are getting shorter, or you can do this ritual in your winter, in your June solstice, if you want. So you can have another New Year ritual of release and opening the way for the new. And I kind of like, another reason why I like doing this around the solstice is because of that energy of the days getting longer, or they're becoming more daylight. It's like light is opening and opening up. And that also, to me, energetically opens up space. Because I don't know if I'm making sense here, because things feel like, oh, there's more energy coming in. Things are coming back to life. You can sense spring is coming. Things are growing. Rain is coming down, and that feeds the ground and comes in. So like all this new energy, you could feel it building up towards the spring. But of course, right now, I live somewhere where winters aren't that bad. So kind of depends on where you live too. Cleo, I've read that you can walk a labyrinth by tracing it with your finger. Yeah, that's another, I've seen that practice. Like you can print up one, I'll get to that, online and trace it if you want. Hi, Tracy. Try to catch something. Okay, making sense. Thank you, Brianne. Spring and new energy. Yeah. So that's my labyrinth ritual. But along with that, along with the releasing, I think it's important to talk about grieving. Grieving what is gone, grieving what you may feel you lost. That may be a person, a relationship, a job, an idea, a belief, something you've lost in the past year. It's important to honor what is done and gone, even if it's a good thing. So an example I often use for grieving something good, like let's say a wedding. Let's say you get married. It's a wonderful thing. It's the new beginning, but you lose being the single person you were. So anytime there's something new, or anytime you want to invite something new, this is the process of change, right? Often something has to change, shift, or go away. And it's sort of like the letdown after the high. Let's use the wedding example. Like you get married and it's high and it's wonderful and you're on the honeymoon and everything's great. And then there's sort of like this letdown, like, oh, and often people think it's like, okay, now it's just practical life, da-da-da. But I think some of it is that we haven't grieved what is gone. And by grieving, maybe crying it away if it's something you miss. But more importantly, it's honoring what was, seeing the lessons, if there's any lessons, depending on what the thing is that you're grieving, if there's any lessons you can learn from it about yourself or about life. Just looking at my notes here, embracing the experience so that you can release it. And that's especially true for, what we call bad things, or negative things that we want to release and move away from. Because, when we use the term letting go or release, it's like people think tossing it away or throwing it in the trash or pushing it away. I want to let that go. I want to let it go. I want to let it go. But if you're constantly pushing against it, you're still holding on to it in your mind. So when we like embrace it, I actually think of like giving it a big hug. So let's use my, narcissistic ex-husband. Not that I would go and actually hug him, but I need to honor that experience, because really challenging life experiences like that have a lot of things to teach us about ourselves. And so I embraced it during that process, not just that labyrinth walk, but for years to come, to understand more about me. Like, why was it in that relationship? Why did I not, get out of it sooner? Why did I not see that I wasn't holding my boundaries, and so on? So we must allow ourselves to grieve both the good and the bad that is done, that is gone, that we're letting go, that we're consciously releasing, and some stuff that just went away that we didn't choose to go away. So we need to honor that it was there, instead of trying to like stuff it away and forget about it and ignore it, pretend it didn't happen, because it did. And it is a part of the people we are in the present. So that's important. Let me just look at my notes here. Allowing ourselves to grieve, honor, embrace, release the good and bad, positive and negative. Yeah. And then again, asking why. For the things we consciously want to release, asking ourselves why. Why do I want to let go of, let's say a relationship or that lifestyle? Am I running away from something? Or is it causing me harm? It's going to be different for each person, but asking yourself why gives you more information about yourself, possibly more things you realize you need to work on within yourself. Things you might need to release, but more importantly, things you need to understand and integrate within yourself so that you can be more whole. And that process also allows in the new. Okay, let me just check. Making sense. Okay. Grieving is so important. Yeah. And grieving can be a celebratory thing too. Like, sometimes like funerals are called celebrating life ceremonies, like celebrating what was. That's the honoring of it. You may cry tears of sadness and tears of joy at the same time, but it's so important to not ignore that process, because it like weighs heavy in us. And it's interesting because the word grief comes from the Latin gravus or gravis. It's really a W, but anyway, that's the linguist in me, which means heavy. It weighs heavy in us if we don't allow ourselves to process it. Again, whether it's something good, something painful, we still have to process it so it doesn't weigh us down. We really need some rain. Okay. Watching Stargate. Nice to see. Okay. You guys are having another conversation. Ink and Flame, I spent all of Scorpio season working on this stuff. That's a good time to do it, especially Scorpio is strong in your chart. So beneficial, turning 180 degrees on some. Yeah. And I don't know if you heard earlier, Ink and Flame, but I pointed out when you do this work, it's not like done, 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 done and gone, never again. It will come back in little bits. You'll find more layers. You'll find more doors to open. You keep working on it. And it doesn't mean that because it continues on, you don't clear the space for the new. You do, but you keep working on it. Where am I? Releasing is what all the 11 portal is about. That's definitely part of that. We have 1212. We are praying for Australia rain. I'm in a drought here too, so I totally understand. Rain. Well, we can all send out a prayer to welcome in rain for the areas that need it. Ink and Flame, yes, I agree. Freedom, you have to work on something even deeper and harder. Okay. So also at that first labyrinth walk, I'm gonna check the time here because this is one of those things where I was like, do I have enough to talk about? Then I'm like, I have too much to talk about. at that Episcopalian church, that first labyrinth walk in, Christmas Eve 2006, going into 2007, there was a huge, like, I don't know, it was maybe 3 feet wide, this giant urn, or you could call it a cauldron. And they had pieces of paper and pencils for people to write down what they wish to release. Now, this is a pretty common burning release ritual. But it's so simple, but it can be so powerful in itself, because often, we've got all this stuff going on in our head and we're like, oh, I don't want this in my life and I want to change that and I want this instead and da da da. But when we stop and put it on paper, it like gets it out of our heads a little bit and into something tangible that we can see and hold and read after we've written it, to get some clarity on it. It helps us get out of our heads a bit. So doing a burning release ritual safely, don't set your home on fire, don't set your neighborhood on fire, do it in something fireproof with water nearby. But you can do that on pieces of paper. And I do this every once in a while. I haven't done this in a while. That's probably a good sign. But writing down what you want to release. And it can start out with things like, I want to release, the pattern of bad relationships, or I want to release, being in a dead-end job, start with the external things, or I want to release my beat up car so I can get a new one, right? And then get to the deeper layers, the more personal, the psychological, the emotional, the lessons. Like, I want to release not holding my boundaries. I want to release not following my dreams. I want to release, not doing the creative artwork I love to do, or whatever you want it to be. And burn it safely and watch the flames. I think that's like at least for me, a powerful piece of watching the flames burn. And sort of an expanded version of this, something I've done occasionally here and there, is when I do a burning release ritual, I'll include like cleansing herbs like sage, or I've even used rosemary. You can do it with herbs. The sage is a very common one for cleansing. And there's something about incorporating the scent, besides the fact that like herbs are said, the smoke is said to reach the divine, the heavens, the gods. Feeling it, does that make sense? Feeling it, smelling it, but I want to say feeling it with your nose, inhaling it and exhaling it out adds to the whole release, because you're realizing it is part of you and you exhale it out. I mean, breathing's a powerful act and ritual in itself, but don't hold the smoke in your face, but it's out there while it's burning, and you just use your breath to help process it within yourself and release it. And you can repeat in your head, basically like a mantra, what you wrote out. And you can write it out as a poem. You could just write a word on a piece of paper, whatever you feel you need to write out, whatever it is that you're releasing. And I would do a separate piece of paper for each different topic of release if you have multiple things, and do each burning separately. Okay, moving the moon, my main wish is rain. Okay, ink and flame, agree. Something even deeper and harder. Julianne prays for rain for you too. I do. We need rain here too. We're supposed to get some this coming week. I feel so much lighter when I release something. We carry so many burdens sometimes, often ones. Yeah, and sometimes we don't realize the burdens we're carrying, and especially the ones we don't need to carry at all, or we don't need to carry anymore, but we're in the pattern of carrying that burden, that emotional burden from something we had to do for a long period of time. We forget to release it. And so just going through, a labyrinth or meditation practice or a writing and burning ritual can make us aware of those, because it could be like, oh, I want to release this. And it's like, why am I holding it? And that's, a question to ask. Why am I holding on to that? Because that could tell you something else as well. Jenny, more rain. Yeah, I had no idea it was that bad. Okay, new moon in Vedic for November is in the nakshatra Anuradha. which is the lotus flower. There's a sign of Scorpio. That's my moon sign. A good time for you to do release because, Scorpio, change and transformation, especially emotional stuff, the moon. Heidi, I have released lots of crap by using my breath. Yeah, breath is such a powerful tool, but deep breath. And I would point out, like, if you find yourself breathing shallowly a lot, and not because you have asthma or something, or a cold or something like that, but you don't do, it's hard for you to do full breaths. You can ask yourself, what is weighing down my chest? And then you can start practicing breathing deeper to release. And you can say, with every in-breath or every inspiration, I like that word, inspiration, you can ask, what do you need to be aware of that needs release? What inspiration can you receive from the divine, whoever you pray to, or from your higher self? And with the out breath, exhaling the blockages. We just had heavy rain. Yoga, really, yeah, yoga is a very good releasing practice. Not just the asana, but the breath, the pranayama, but then the rest of the yoga practice, especially the yamas and the niyamas, which are the first two limbs of yoga. And this isn't about yoga, and I don't want to take up time on that, but incorporating those, and many of us are already doing it, but incorporating those practices into our everyday life makes us aware of blockages that we need to release. Yeah, Om chanting. So another way you can do this, if you don't have a labyrinth nearby, or you don't like walking meditation, or there's nowhere to walk nearby, or you prefer seated meditation, you could do it with listening to chants. It can be Om, it can be something else, it could be drumming, shamanic drumming, but something that gets you into that meditative state, but still where you can like do the mental process. So you're not going to like fall asleep. You're still aware enough, but in that calm state to see this process of sort of reviewing the past year and what needs release, especially within yourself. And then to sit silently, as in like when I stood in the center of the labyrinth, or when I do that each year, and then still in that meditative state, you can just let yourself envision what's coming in instead of consciously thinking, oh, I'd like to bring this in. Yeah. Okay. So talked about grief. So moving on with more writing to release. So I also have journaling, because as you probably know, I like journaling. I like working with writing to understand myself. You can do this as an automatic writing process where you just sit down and just say, okay, how am I closing out this new year? What needs release? And you just see what flows from your pen. And then you can do one where, okay, what do I want to bring in? And I want to point out why, who's here somewhere. I watched his Marie Kondo Year 2020, which was on two hours ago, 2 sessions before this one. Great writing exercises. So if you haven't checked his out, go back and watch it, because it was awesome. Totally goes along with this. I was like, he's stealing my idea here, or what I was going to talk about. But journaling. And I wrote here, to discover, and discover is to uncover those layers, to peel open those, if you want to say the onion layers, to discover what we are holding on to consciously and possibly subconsciously. So revealing things to ourselves from within ourselves that needs release. And also, sometimes we need to discover what it is we really wish to bring into our lives. Like we may have this idea in our head, like I want this job, and I want this relationship, and I want this lifestyle, or I want this car, whatever it might be. And those are ideas we've had since like we were little kids, or we realized, that's what my parents wanted, or that's what all my friends wanted. So sometimes when we journal out something like this, like, what do I want? What do I want to welcome in the new year? not what do the implanted ideas in my head want, which you may find you agree with and you may find you don't agree with. So discovering that can be quite revealing, and that itself can be shocking, because you might be like, you might have this idea of like the perfect relationship in the house and the white picket fence, sort of similar stereotypical type of thing. And you may have been thinking you want that because your parents had that or your friends have that and this and that. And you go through this process and you realize, no, I'm going to live in a tiny house, so it could be quite revealing, and it can create, I'll call it a mini identity crisis, but it's really just coming more into yourself. And then you may realize there's identities that you need to release. So this process, depending on how deep you go journaling, it can go through layers and layers within the psyche. And I feel it's important too to revisit when you do some sort of journaling exercise like this, revisit as in reread what you wrote, but also revisit and see if that shifts like a month from now as you get more comfortable with those new revealed layers about yourself, as you get more comfortable with what you realized you needed to release or what was released. And once you've grieved some sort of process, revisit it and see what you add to it. So this morning I did a little mini version of this journaling. So I'll share that with you. And let me just check on the message here. Hi, Sylvia. Yeah, I hope your husband is okay. You don't have to say anything here. Thank you. Everyone loves the green walls. And I always point out that it makes the videos always a little like pixelated, no matter what I do with the lighting, but I can green screen the walls if I wanted to. Love your passion for what you're doing, your spiritual practice. Thank you, Fairy Wren Whispers. Jenny, love the violet. I have been doing affirmation. I like the green walls too. Thank you, Marjorie. Hi, Julianne. I am a little late to your talk, but I want to tell you of my favorite way to release is to forgive. Yes, that is an awesome way to forgive, and especially self-forgiveness. So going back to my first labyrinth walk and needing to work on releasing a lot of my first marriage, it had already been over for a year or more. And, one is like, okay, working to forgive him for the narcissistic abuse, right? But I had to forgive myself because stuff came up like, I knew this, I saw this, I intuited such and such and this and that, and being mad at myself for not listening to my own intuition, instead listening to his gaslighting, right? So self-forgiveness is a key part, and I can't stress that enough, of forgiveness of others as well. Because if we're like, okay, I forgive you for that, but you're still pissed off at yourself, that anger is going to be projected back on that other person. Yeah, forgiveness. Okay, so my little journaling exercise I did this morning, just briefly. So as I mentioned, the journaling can be general. It could just be, I'm going to sit down, let's say on the solstice or New Year's Eve, and just start writing, like automatic writing, or it could be like free association if you want, or you can have a specific question. So just for a brief one for this talk today, I wrote down the question, and this reflects what I've been working a lot lately, which is my second edition of my astrology book. Every 10 little minutes I can. I wrote down, what am I holding on to mentally or emotionally that needs to be released to allow in more creative flow for writing? So on the surface, I know it's like constantly adjusting time management. So if you don't know, I'm a work from home mommy of a 2-year-old. Things are crazy busy. It always seems to take much longer to do things than I think it will. And I'm used to that. I'm used to always juggling the time management. And I can make the excuse to myself like, oh, I just didn't have enough time, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, when I'm sitting down and writing, I feel some sort of energetic block, right? So like I'm holding on to something. Nothing out there is energetically blocking me. I know it's coming from within me. So I just sat down for a few minutes this morning and I worked on this question. I just wrote, couple paragraphs here, and then I did revisit it a few hours later. So I kind of crunched the revisit and journaling process. This can go over weeks or months or years even. And I just kind of like just freely let it write. I tried not to think. So pseudo automatic writing, right? I wrote, I'm blocking myself by wanting perfection, which sometimes slows my progress, which then creates stress or pressure I put on myself, which then leads to sluggish energy or I wrote active procrastination, because there's always stuff for me to do. It's not like I'm sitting around twiddling my thumbs, right? And then I get mad at myself, and that energy is all there. And so it's the wanting it to be perfect. And then when I revisited it, I wrote perfection / imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is when it's basically doubt. You doubt you're any good at something you're doing. And this happens like every once in a while when I'm with anything I'm doing, like I'm working on it for so long, and like it's like, is this any good? Is it crap? Because it's just in your face regularly, repeatedly. And then I wrote perfection with self-imposed timelines, because I don't like being late. So there's this perfectionist side of me that, I don't like to be late. I haven't met my self-imposed guidelines. And I need to work with this perfectionist within, so that because things aren't perfect, because I haven't hit my own self-imposed deadlines, I don't block myself with the anger or frustration I have because of that. So it is sort of like it loops around on itself. So that's my little journaling example of how to journal about something that needs release, especially something within yourself, because we can easily list off things external, right? It's the inner stuff. So I'm working on right now, one thing I'm working on is releasing perfectionism. Okay, let me check the chat here. Happy memories, crack the frost. Okay, I think you're talking about something else. Okay. So just, journaling freely or putting questions down, either way helps. Yeah, any questions on what I've talked about so far? So check the time here. So I want to get into the tarot part. Time delay. Okay, while you guys do that, let me pull these over. Okay. I'll check. I'm going to keep going. So using tarot for insights on what you need to release, what is releasing. Are you blocking yourself? Are you blocking the new, to discover what it is you truly want to bring in? So I have a few little things here with tarot that you can use, or even oracle cards. One thing, very simple, that automatically happens by the universe is stalker cards. So stalker cards around this time of year. So stalker cards, if you don't know, are cards that keep repeating in readings you do. And if you read for other people, include that too, as long as they've shown up repeatedly in your own spreads. This could be tarot, this could be oracle, whatever divination method you might use. Stalker cards are like little alarms or wake-up calls by the universe saying, you need to pay attention to something that this pertains to you in your life. So lately, my example here, and this is something that I need to bring more in the new year or this next month, I've had serenity. Oops, banged everything there. I don't know if you can see that. And I think it shows up backwards to you guys because the live camera is mirrored. I don't know, but this says serenity. And so does this card. Now, the card I'm holding up here is from L'Oracle des Reflets. And I have pulled that serenity card 5 or 6 times this week. I reshuffle. It's my little daily morning card that I pull, my morning ritual. This one is on my tree art altar, so it's been there for a few weeks. I keep pulling serenity. And I want to point out this morning in Christiana's live, she had a bunch of little tarot spreads and things you could do as well. So it was pretty cool. And one of them was pulling 2 cards. First card, what you need to let go of. And the second card, what you need to bring in, right? Release, so in this case, what do I need to release? And what new do I need to welcome in, or should I welcome in, however you want to phrase it. And I pulled the 8 of Wands for release. So crazy busyness, basically. And the 4 of Swords for what to welcome in. 4 of Swords, serenity, peace of mind, taking a break, not being so busy bee flurry all the time, challenging with all I'm doing, but it's also telling me I can do it with all I'm doing. And so part of it is just releasing the thoughts, my own resistance of like, no, I have this and this and this to do, and I have to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do the dishes, and I got to change a diaper, and I got to do this. It's also resisting those thoughts that actually resist the serenity from coming in. They're not backwards. Okay, so it's just backwards to me. The print is showing correctly. Thank you. Serenity is bliss. It is. I have released it in others that are no longer in my life are highest good. Awesome. So that was one. The second, I have 2 spreads here. I'll do the labyrinth one with you guys to see what comes up. The first one is just the 3-card spread. Like you can do a past, present, future, like past, what is releasing, present, where am I now, future, what is coming in, or more specifically, the first card can be what is ready to go, right? Or what do I need to understand to release? The second card can be what action do I need to take, or how do I clear the space so that the new can come in? And the third one can be what do I need to allow in, or what you can even say is going to manifest in the new year, depending on how you want to define those 3 cards. Or you could just say 3-card spread. Let me see what comes up. I actually kind of like that. But I did come up with a little labyrinth spread for you guys. And I realized I can probably take a picture of this and post it on the Facebook group. So if you don't know, there's a Facebook group. I'll link it under this afterwards. But if you go to the announcement, like the little 3-minute announcement video I posted Friday, I think it was, my Friday, Saturday for some of you, the Facebook group link is underneath that, and you can go and join the group, and people are sharing all sorts of cards and stuff. I've only peeked on there. I just haven't had time to go through, but I can post this there too if you're interested in that. What about if the release card is something really good like the sun? You know, it could be seeing things through rose-colored glasses. So think of the sun in reverse then, or what reverse meanings would be for you. Are you blocking your sun in some way? You can also pull extra cards. You can pull like a second clarifier if you want. We start days of having it or striving. No, I wouldn't say it's releasing your ideas of happiness, though you may have an ideal that isn't true to you too. So you can dive deeper, and you can journal with it to explore deeper. Once you feel that there are people around you bringing you down, you start to know that's not good for your heart. That's true. You have to do it for yourself. Good stuff. Writing these down. Thank you, Ink and Flame. Yeah, it's important to see what we are resisting letting go of, because we may know, like, yeah, I need to stop doing this, but we don't. So something in us is resisting, right? Or to remember to wear a sun hat. It's true, yeah. So Fairy Wren whispers, yeah, sometimes the cards are quite literal. So, I mean, you know your life, and you pull the sun card and you're getting sunburnt all the time, then, you know, that wouldn't be an example of it being literal. But I want to say my first thought is that, you know, you pull the sun card as release. Are you seeing things through rose-colored glasses? Or is something so bright, like something's like too good to be true? Just ideas. So you'll have to explore that further, or again, pull a clarifier card. Okay. So I have my little labyrinth spread here, and it's sort of following the journey into the labyrinth. So the first card, you can lay these cards 5 in a row. How are we on time? Okay, so I'm actually going to lay a spread here. I'm going to use the Morgan Greer Tarot. So I'm going to shuffle the cards. The first position is what has been released. What am I moving away from? So that's when you're outside the labyrinth. And then for the journey into the center, the question is, what needs release, or what am I clinging to that hinders the new? In the center of the labyrinth is, where do I stand now? And that's card number 3. The fourth card on the journey out of the labyrinth is, what action to take or how to open myself to welcome in the new. And the final card is, when you leave the labyrinth, after you've gone through the process, right, is what is waiting to manifest in the cleared space. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle the cards. I'm going to do this spread here. You guys can follow along. If you have your cards, shuffle your cards, pull 5 cards, and I'll talk mine through with you. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to lay my 5 cards. So my first card is the 9 of Wands. And the first card is, what has been released, or what am I moving away from? Struggle, perseverance. I'm standing strong, but I've been through a lot. And I think this is actually reflecting the last few years. I've been through a lot. I want to say I've been through a lot. I've persevered. I can chill out now. I'm hearing chill out, which is more serenity, right? I think, but like, he's holding 1 wand. Like, I'm still in that sort of vigilant state, but I don't need to be there anymore. Okay. The second question, I wrote it in the curve of the labyrinth. So, what needs release, or what am I clinging to that hinders the new? So what needs release? The 6 of Swords. So I'm clinging to, the stormy waters. I'm clinging to what I've had to persevere through. I want to say I'm clinging to the story that I was living the past few years. And just to sum up, if you don't know my story, I had a really difficult pregnancy and a lot of pain, a lot of stuff, a lot of injuries as a result of a 33-hour labor and an emergency C-section. So that sums it up. But I have videos on it on my channel in the vlogs and discussions. So it's the story. The camera is different than I'm used to, so I can't hold it up right. I'm stuck on the story, the storm, what I've had to persevere through. And I need to release that story. I need to write a new story. And that's actually a good practice also, is write out a story of the year ahead. Your life, doesn't have to fall exactly into that, and you can go and modify and edit your story at any point through the year. This is another like revisiting journaling. But you can start out and write a story, let's say for January. How would you like January to go? So I'm going to sit down and actually write out a new story, because I have that old stormy story still probably cycling through in my conscious and subconscious. Okay. Funny about the sun hat, kind of synchronistic, actually, professional guide self. Julianne has a little trick that she'd like to share with all when it comes to forgiving. Y says, oh my God. Julianne says, visualize the experience, see yourself and or anyone involved, forgive it, put it behind you and let it go. Yeah, visualization is a very powerful tool. Thank you, Brianne. So I'm out of that story. And honestly, it's only in the past few months where I've been pain-free, and she's 2 now. But it's just my brain is used to that pattern, right? Our brains get used to patterns of thinkings and experiences of being. And when those experiences shift, our brains don't always follow along. So I need to rewrite the story in my head. Oh, thank you, Fairy Wren. Yeah, past life karmic cycle. Okay, moving on. Third card, where do I stand now? So I'm at the center of the labyrinth now. I can't see what I'm pointing to. Okay. Just realize this. Where am I now? Where do I stand now? The 10 of Cups. And so I need to be in this. I need to reprogram my brain. And you reprogram, you retell your story by gratitude's a great tool. Like, oh, I'm not in pain now. Oh, I feel good now. Oh, I can go for a run and not be debilitated for a week. Oh, I have a loving family. So where am I now? The 10 of Cups. That's a really good place to be. And I need to work on appreciating that more and more. Otherwise, I stay stuck here. I stay stuck on the stormy waters. The boat doesn't move forward. Okay, number 4. Yeah, live the new story in gratitude and celebration. Exactly, Gypsy Heart Souls. Number 4, what action to take or how to open myself to welcome in the new. So this is sort of like I call it the homework card. What do you do? The 8 of Pentacles, which is interesting. A work card, work. I want to say continue what I'm doing, but change my story. Continue what I'm doing, have gratitude for what is now, and keep doing what I'm doing. I want to say it will come out in my work because I have a lot of writing projects. And much of it is taking my experience to help other people. And that's another way to appreciate what I've been through. This is sort of like honoring what's gone. And it may come up as I work on this that I need to grieve away my difficult years. That sounds funny, but it's true because obviously I'm still in that story consciously, but I think that's also subconsciously. Continue my work because it's helping me heal. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Continue my work because it's helping me to continue to heal, to continue to move forward. And I want to say to see all these awesome cups I've got. Okay. Thank you, Y. Gratitude journal. Yeah, gratitude journal. The Aries is here. Okay. So the last card in the labyrinth spread, when you leave the labyrinth, when you've gone through this tarot meditation journey through the labyrinth, what is waiting to manifest in the cleared space? The 4 of Wands, celebration. This is also a card of completion, and 4s are numbers of stability. So I want to say feeling more stable in myself and who I am, in my life, in my family. Not that I feel unstable in my family, but maybe something's there because it came up. But celebrating, this is the honoring too, celebrating how far I've come, celebrating how I've healed, celebrating what I have, celebrating what I can do, my work that can help other people. At least that's my goal. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Fairy Wren. And I'll journal on this more. There'll be more insights, obviously. Thank you, Science to Soul Tarot with Jen. There's Jenny and Jen. That's a common name in the chats, I've noticed. So I'll take a picture of this and post it on that Facebook group. Or you can, when you watch back, I'm just going to hold this up for a second. You can watch back and then screenshot this. And then you have it on your computer and you can print it up if you're not on Facebook. Okay, so that should be funny. Or you can stop the video and screenshot it, or screenshot it just then. We have like 2 minutes left. I did have one more thing on my list because I realized, release and welcome in. That's like 2 opposing things. And I was thinking, oh, do I have tarot decks that have 2 opposing keywords on it? And then I realized I have a deck, my own deck. It's called The Fine Lines, 44 Meditations for Intentional Living. That's the box. I have a full workbook for them. And so I pulled a card from my deck this morning, just saying, okay, because there's 2 things. I'll show you the cards. It's something versus something else. And one would be something you want to welcome in more, and the other is something you want to release. They're like two sides of the same coin, to give a brief summary, because we only have like 2 minutes. I pulled the card give and receive versus give and take. And so really the opposing thing is there's giving, but am I open to receive, or am I taking? And I want to add just wishing people would give. So what this brings up for me, if I'm reflecting back on the past year, and I'm going to say few years, because that's definitely coming into play here, was I resistant to help because so little help was given? And did I develop an attitude of resistance? Like, no, I can do it all myself. And I think there was a little bit of that. So I'm going to work on this some more. It's shifting the light because it's a blue card. So it's shifting it red. So this is another tool. So if you have a deck like the Fine Lines, where it has like, two opposing things, like aspire versus desire, private versus secretive, you can take one. So the first one is usually what you want to welcome in more. And the second one is something you want to let go of a little bit more. But again, they're two sides of the same coin. Childlike versus childish. If you have some sort of deck like this, or if you like my deck, you can get it. Act of kindness versus action for reward. This is a good tool for both release and welcoming in. So I thought of that as I was working on it. And again, there's a huge workbook with like full prompts for all of them if you want to do some in-depth journaling, inner transformation for the new year. Okay. How are we on? Let me see okay, it's 4:01. Okay, so Tom Benjamin is next. He's probably just started. So I'm going to sign off here. Oh, hi, Jules, Cosmetic Spirit. I'm just wrapping up. You can watch back. Tom Benjamin is on again. Thank you, Fairy Wren. They're affordable. I do them all very affordably because I want to create things that people, that more people can get, not just people can only buy decks for $60, $70. I use give of myself all the time. Yeah, receiving is an important balance. Like, you can still give, but if you're giving so much, you drain your energy. So you're probably highly empathic. Like, you don't have the energy to give anymore. So just being open to receive, have gratitude when something is offered, can help balance that out. And for a long time, so this is getting onto something I've been working on for years, actually. For a long time, it was really hard for me to accept help from other people because for much of my life, no one offered help. But that's another story I won't get in. Thank you, Y. Y has created a whole playlist. Grab your snacks and binge. You're welcome, Marjorie. Give, Okay, so I'm going to sign off because Tom's probably on already, and I don't want to overlap on someone's time. I feel like I was gab because there's so much to talk about here. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone who's joined in, even if you came in at the end, like Jules. Yeah, thank you. And you can watch back later. I'm going to post my little thing. Take a screenshot now if you're not on Facebook, or watch back, and I'll post that picture on the Facebook group. All right, everyone. Thank you. It's fun being here.